Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Listen on demand wherever you get your podcasts or watch us live on YouTube.
Elizabeth Economy, the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, changed our dialogue on China, where their Michigan graduate school book, The River Runs Black, and has done the rarest thing. She had a triumph in graduate school and then continued forward with book after book after book. She's the only one I know who's read all of James Tarajian on G as well. Dr. Economy, thank you so much for joining us. Because of you, I am buried in a nerd book, Joel Wuthnow and Philip Saunders, China's Quest for Military Supremacy. Elizabeth Economy, do you have any idea the makeup and the power of President Xi's China military force?
I mean, if you're reading the book, then you know that Xi Jinping has made radical changes to China's military over the past 13 years since he came into power. He's reorganized it. Certainly, he's reshuffled the top Chinese military. He's modeled it in many cases on the U.S. Joint structure. And he's certainly increased and advanced China's military hardware capabilities. So he's transformed. He's been a transformative military leader. That being said, of course, we've also watched these purges of the senior military leadership, most recently at the fourth plenum. And it's very unclear, the readiness of the Chinese military, certainly at the top, to take any kind of military action moving forward. So just the constant roiling of the senior Chinese military leadership, I think, is a real challenge for Xi Jinping and the party leadership. Liz,
Paul Sweeney brought this up brilliantly this morning. The basic idea is we all have a perspective of Taiwan, and maybe it's Chiang Kai-shek and Mrs. Chiang Kai-shek coming to Washington, and then on to this and Nixon and Kissinger and all that. Is this a fulcrum point where Taiwan is actually under threat?
Look, there's no doubt that Taiwan is under threat. And over the past several years, the rhetoric out of Beijing and the military activity around Taiwan, the air flights, the sort of crossings in the Taiwan Strait over the median line have only increased. And I think what we saw just over the past few weeks was Prime Minister of Japan, Takaichi, when she said that if China were to take military action against Taiwan, Japan could be forced itself to take some sort of military action, that China came out very hot and said Japan had crossed a red line, and that, it started, the banning, boycotting Japanese seafood, Japanese films, et cetera. And so I think there's no doubt, Xi Jinping has said he wants the Chinese military to be prepared to take action by 2027. That doesn't mean that they're going to launch any kind of military invasion in 2027. He's just put that down as a marker for when he would want the military to be prepared to take Taiwan. So I'll just say I was in mainland China, just came back Saturday. And one of the things that our delegation heard was from a retired senior foreign policy official that China's not prepared to wait 200 years, that it is prepared to take any form of military action. So I think the heat is it's only getting hotter for Taiwan at this point.
Elizabeth, President Trump and President Xi have been on again, off again, having discussions on trade. What's the perception within China of President Trump, this administration, and maybe the policies as it relates to China?
I think, that there's still a sense within China that President Trump can be very unpredictable. They see some openings with President Trump, and I think the recent phone call that was initiated by Xi Jinping is evidence that, Xi Jinping wanted to send a message about Taiwan, certainly, that Taiwan is part of China and doesn't want the United States to wade into this, Japan, mainland China brouhaha. But I think he was also probing to see whether President Trump might be willing to do something on Taiwan, especially in the wake of this, U.S.-Russia negotiation over Ukraine and that initial peace plan that they put forth. Is there something that President Trump and President Xi could discuss on Taiwan when they meet in April? So I think, the perception in China is that President Trump is a deal maker, that he's willing to put everything on the table and to trade things in and out. And so I think that's what they're looking to assess now.
Do you believe, from the U.S. perspective, that putting things on the table would include Taiwan? Do we have any indication President Trump would consider that?
I think there's always concern when it comes to President Trump's commitment to Taiwan. He's never come out and said that Taiwan is a very valuable partner for the United States. He's been critical of Taiwan on some fronts. I think what we do know is that Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth have been very strong in their support of Taiwan, very strong in their commitment to our Indo-Pacific allies and partners, and to sort of a continued U.S. dominant presence in the Indo-Pacific, in the security space. So, it's unclear. I think we've seen a fracturing to some extent of this administration on the Russia issue. It's not impossible that we'd have a similar fracturing on the Taiwan-China issue.
Elizabeth Economy with us, an extended conversation, of course, with the Hoover Institution and Stanford University. Margie Patel, Chris Whalen coming up. And later we'll be looking at the gambling across America. Dr. Economy, The World According to China, your must read. You say, rewriting the rules of the game. My China 101, also learned at the altar of Elizabeth Economy, is that presidents have a 4-year window, an 8-year window. China has a 20, 30-year x-axis. Rewriting the rules of the game. One of your chapters here. Does President Xi, is he shorten the China exit, or are they playing the long game each and every day?
He's certainly playing the long game, as you say, each and every day. And, they continue to invest in all the resources and capabilities that they need to, win the game over to 2035 to 2049. And you see this in all the targets and timetables that they put forth, for example, and, how they're going to achieve global technology dominance. But it also plays out across, a range of areas, whether we're talking about the Arctic or space or deep seabed mining or de-dollarizing the global economy. They're constantly putting, markers out for the future, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out. What do they want to achieve? How are they going to get there? They have a long-term vision and a long-term strategy to achieve that vision. So this is the long game. And, Xi Jinping doesn't see himself exiting anytime soon. So I think we can count on at least another 5-year term beginning in 2027 for Xi Jinping. And after that, I imagine he'll still want to, at least be in the background, guiding the next leaders of China.
So if Xi Jinping seems secure for the foreseeable future, how does the average Chinese person on the ground feel about the world? Are they comfortable with China becoming, I guess, ever more ostracized from the West? Do they want to integrate with the West? What's the feeling on the ground?
I think, look, there are as many different opinions within China as there are, in the United States. And I think there are people who continue to advocate and desire that China be, more open politically, even more open economically these days to the West. There were people who said, Xi Jinping made a mistake when he decided to align with Russia as opposed to the West after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then there are people that are very comfortable with China's more sort of robust posture on the global stage. It's more wolf warrior diplomacy. Right. So there's not one particular view, I think, within China. But I think we see how Xi Jinping, his approach is right. The much more activist and expansionist and ambitious China, and one that's not afraid to take on the West and to assert Chinese interests, Chinese values, and Chinese priorities.
Dr. Economy, in the time we've got left, I've got to go to what you led with, which is this new tension between a new government in Japan and with China. And folks, I'm ignorant of this. Okay, I got it. We're doing. Can we do some surveillance geography now?
Yeah, I Google Maps like 10 times a day.
Which is seared in the memory of all Americans, and you come down southwest. there's Miyakayama, Tarama, Ishigaki, Takatomi.
Oh, boy.
And then, Paul, help me here. There's a little piece of land. Sweeney nailed this at Lawrenceville years ago. Yonaguni. And on a clear day from Yonaguni, sometimes you can see Taiwan.
Can you? Okay.
Japan is that close to China. Liz, what is our biggest ignorance about the modern Chinese-Japanese relationship?
I mean, there continue to be tensions between China and Japan. They're important trading partners, but I think the distance between the closest point of Japan and China is only 70 miles. They have their own territorial conflict over the Diaoyu Senkaku Islands, which Japan administers, but China claims. And China, as assertive as it's been toward Taiwan militarily over the past few years, it's been equally assertive and aggressive militarily toward Japan around this particular, dispute. So I think from the perspective of Japan, they're concerned for Taiwan. Taiwan used to be a colony of Japan. Many people in Taiwan actually speak Japanese, feel close to Japan. So they have their own concerns about Taiwan. They have concerns about, China dominating the, Taiwan Strait and trade routes there that Japan depends on. But they're also concerned about their own security. And if, China takes action against Taiwan, is successful, is Japan next? So I think there are a number of issues sitting back in the minds of the Japanese when it comes to Chinese military action against Taiwan that prompted Prime Minister Takaichi's comment.
Elizabeth, how do you think Japan and our other allies in that part of the world, do they view the commitment from the United States these days? Are they as confident as maybe they have been in past years, or is that wavering?
No, I think, the commitment starts from the top. And, President Biden was very clear on a number of occasions. He said that the United States would come to the defense of Taiwan if China were to, attempt a blockade or a military, invasion. President Trump has not reiterated that commitment. He's gone back to the policy of strategic ambiguity. But I think more than that, there's a sense, that everything was under review at the outset of the Trump administration. Were they going to continue to support the AUKUS, right, the nuclear submarine deal between Australia, the UK, and the US? There was a lot of uncertainty. Ultimately, we did support it, but everything seems to be, up for grabs, with President Trump. Again, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio have been very firm from the minute that the administration took office that there was going to be continuity in the U.S. commitment to the Indo-Pacific. But with President Trump, there's a much higher degree of uncertainty about our commitment to our allies and partners than, frankly, not only Democrats, but Republicans in the past.
Dr. Economy, thank you so much for the generous time this morning. Really, really appreciate it. Elizabeth Economy, there, folks, from Hoover and from Stanford as well. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
Chris Whalen with us. His book, Inflated. If you love Ken Burns and the American Revolution, Chris Whalen had the courage to take our financial history back to the beginning of the nation and drive forward. The book is Inflated. Chris, you've been on fire on so many debates. Let's start with Fannie and Freddie now. This is Pulte of Fannie and Freddie. Chris Whalen has no idea what he's talking about. His statements are becoming false, defamatory, and misleading. Where's Mr. Pulte wrong, Chris Whalen?
I don't think he knows what's going on inside his own agency, Tom. I have no malice against the man. He's a 37-year-old individual who has no background in finance and mortgages. So he's a patronage appointee. The president is clearly more concerned with loyalty than he is with competence. And I think we just have to wait until we get somebody else in that position. We're certainly not going to take Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac out of conservatorship while Bill Pulte is in that job. That's for one thing.
Mr. Ackman says, leave it alone. Is Fannie and Freddie, Chris Whalen, a going concern forward for the nation, our listeners, our viewers?
yes, they really support half of the mortgage market. The middle class, upper middle class borrower typically goes through Fannie or Freddie, and they are an important utility, but that's all they should be. We should not be trading the common voting shares of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac because the government always controls it, Tom. There's a guy named Louis Brandeis who used to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court, and almost a century ago, he defined a true sale. And he said, if you retain dominion over the assets, then it is fraud on its face. So we should not commit fraud by selling voting shares to individuals who do not control either company. I've said to Ackman and others, we should buy back all the voting common shares and fund this thing with debt and preferred. That's the best way to do it. And make them utilities. We don't need to have any alpha here. There is no alpha.
So what do you think the path forward is for Fannie and Freddie here? And who's going to drive that?
At the moment, nothing is going to happen.
Okay.
The two enterprises have been turned into government agencies. As I've written in my blog this week, there is no possibility of them coming out of conservatorship because they don't have the people, they haven't invested in the systems and other things that they need. So today they buy loans from conventional lenders, they package them into securities, and they sell them on to Wall Street. That's what they do. That's it. Unfortunately, they think they're federal bank regulators. They're not, but they treat the industry with a certain degree of contempt and indifference, which a lot of people find really irritating. I work with many lenders around the country, and I think the best thing to do with these entities is turn them into utilities. Just dumb them down so that all they do is buy loans, issue securities. That's it.
Chris Whalen with us. It's Richard Christopher Whalen out on Twitter at RC Whalen, Whalen, also on LinkedIn as well. Paul, here's a quiet tweet from Whalen. Fundamentals, ? Like what ? Bitcoin is an option to take advantage of a greater fool. It has no intrinsic value. Electronic poker chips that people have decided to bid up in value. Chris Whalen, everybody in this year off the diving board into the deep end of retail and Bitcoin. What will be the carnage 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out?
I think this summer was actually the high point in many crypto assets, particularly Bitcoin, which is the leader. Wall Street killed Bitcoin, Tom. When we started putting up ETFs and everything else, we correlated these kind of interesting tokens to Wall Street. And that was the end. Remember, when Bitcoin came out in 2009, it was supposed to be an alternative to the dollar, a means of exchange that wasn't controlled by banks. It's since mutated into a speculative vehicle with all sorts of, accoutrement and everything else. But to me, the dream is dead. Whatever value this thing had as a separate means of exchange away from fiat currencies is gone. And what you see today is that the major central banks have been buying gold. Gold is now the leading reserve asset in the world. They're not going to back their currencies 100% with gold. They don't have to. They could put 20% backing behind them, and they would be quite robust. The U.S. is the example here, Tom. I think it's only a matter of time before Treasury and Congress, they have to act, are going to revalue U.S. gold stocks. And I think the Treasury should buy and sell gold, just the way other nations in the world do. And that will be our index for inflation, by the way. We can teach our people about inflation by getting gold back in the center where it belongs.
If Bitcoin isn't what it used to be, it's more of a trading commodity. How do you feel about crypto in general? What's the role of broadly defined crypto in our economy?
The tokens that go up and down in value, to me, are just a speculative vehicle. It's a polite form of fraud that's tolerable between consenting adults. It's like party poker, there is no difference. Stable coins, I'm not sure what the use case is because it's essentially a bank deposit. You give me your cash, I have to put it in high quality liquid assets that are safe kept at a bank. And then you give me the use of this coin. If I'm Walmart or Amazon and I offer my customers a discount for buying my coin, I think it makes sense. It's like a prepaid gift card. But is it an investment vehicle? No. I think it just evidences the amount of inflation that we have in our system, that you have people chasing all of these things, looking for returns, instead of doing what they should be doing and, buying stocks. It's like private credit, Tom. Imagine if people, instead of going into private equity, had just bought the S&P 500. They'd be much better off, and they'd be liquid.
We got a surprise in January. Chris Whalen, of course, nails it. Form 1099-DA. Chris Whalen, it's coming, isn't it? 1099.
Yes.
What's it? We have 1099-R, 1099 this, 1099 that. Chris Whalen, how much joy are we going to have in 1099-DA?
Look, when we domesticated Bitcoin and the other tokens, the IRS wants their slice, right? You can't escape. So there's a great accounting firm in Chicago called Accounting Solutions, and he writes these wonderful pieces. That's where I got that, by the way, Chris Adamson. And, it had to happen. They want their money. And the funny thing about blockchain, which is the output from Bitcoin that was created at the time, in 2009, is it tracks all the transactions. So it's a roadmap for the IRS to come after you. It's really great.
Chris Whalen, thank you so much. Folks, I can't say enough. Throw out the cherubs this fall. I'm bored. I don't know what to do over the holiday season. Throw Chris Whalen's Inflated at them. It goes back to the Bank of the United States. It's a really wonderful, readable walkthrough at history. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
We are very fortunate right now. Wendy Schiller parachutes in a special appearance, and we're thrilled that Professor Schiller, definitive in our physics, in our civics, I should say, also our physics, could join us. Wendy, I want to dovetail in something that's not been reported, which is General Kellogg, 81 years old, walks away from the Trump administration as this peace process begins. Does the president have support of institutional Washington for this peace process?
Well, I think that the Trump administration has shown that it wants to shake up institutional Washington, particularly institutional military. At the Pentagon, Hegseth has been fairly aggressive in firing or dismissing or sidelining people. And he's got all sorts of race and diversity reasons, but he's also got carte blanche from the president to do that so far. So I think they're charting their own path. And I don't think that they're worried about that. I think Trump doesn't believe that continued U.S. support in Ukraine is a winner. Right. And this president likes to win. So, I think he's finally said to both Rubio and Hegseth, we're done. We're just done. Get us out of this. Whatever the cost may be to get, to Ukraine, get us out and get us out now.
The Telegraph has a headline over the weekend of General Kellogg. Full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of his public service to the nation. Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg, quote, quits, unquote, after plan for U.S. peace leaked. How alone is President Trump in prosecuting his peace plan with Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky?
Well, Tom, I think you're pointing out that both the world and domestically, President Trump is always, quote unquote, alone because we just don't know what he will do next. He's just simply not predictable at all. And he, when he decides. He can be talked out of something. But he's always sort of viewed himself as president as sole commander in chief. So I think in this case, particularly with the pressures on the president domestically, on affordability, on pricing, on happiness with him, poll numbers, Americans do want the bulk of his attention to be on America, the United States of America. And I think they're feeling it, not just the president, but also the Republicans. And Republicans in Congress have been stronger on Ukraine than President Trump. I think they've shored up President Trump's commitment to Ukraine. But I think they all look at 2026, right around the corner that campaign starts, and saying to themselves, how long do we justify the billions of dollars of aid that we're giving in a war that looks increasingly unlikely to resolve itself?
Brent crude down, the blue button, the Detroit Lion blue button. Brent crude down $1.6235. Headlines moments ago. I want to be very careful here. This from Bloomberg. Zelensky, Ukraine continues peace plan talks with the U.S. The Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Besant, on China. Xi and Trump agreed peace in Ukraine must move forward. Paul Sweeney.
Professor Schiller here with the midterms. Boy, just seemingly just right around the corner here. How does President Trump kind of focus his energy in the coming months, do you think, U.S. domestic policy versus foreign policy?
Well, all presidents do the same thing. When things are going badly at home, usually they find a way to go abroad or emphasize their accomplishments abroad. This is not a partisan tendency. He's just like every other president before him, including himself. But I think that here, it's unclear what his motivation is. Obviously, he can't run again. I think he's sort of backed off, really trying to get the Republicans to get him a third term. So now what do? You don't want to be a lame duck with no influence. I think that will really literally drive President Trump crazy. So domestic is important, but I see the president possibly pivoting. I think that the Republicans in the House that have supported him may have to go on a bumpy ride with him in directions that they don't want to go, meaning more centrist. I think the president is seeing how successful that could be. Look at Virginia, look at New Jersey in terms of those campaigns. And it was his inclination when he became president. So for example, Obamacare tax subsidies, does anyone really believe that Trump won't sign an extension at some point? They'll recraft it, they'll tweak it, but he will not let this go on for a long time with people unable to afford health insurance. So we know he'll do that. And then the question is, does he let the Congress know that he pivots? And they're worried about primaries. As soon as the primary season is over, Trump doesn't have nearly as much influence on the general election in the midterms. So these Republicans in the House are worried about him coming in, primarying, supporting a challenger. If they can get past that hump, I think you see greater separation between the president and the Congress.
So we haven't seen a Congress really push back on this president at all. And is it the assumption, as you're suggesting here, that maybe we won't see that until after these midterm elections?
Yeah, if you do see it at all. The Senate pushed back a little bit, right? So he said, get rid of the filibuster to get my agenda through. And John Thune's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Twice he said that, right? So he said, I don't have the votes to do that. We're not doing that. Which also may be an indication the Republicans who've been there a long time, it's 6 years, they'll be there longer than Trump, some of them. But they also see maybe the Senate actually flips in 26, which is even more reason why you wouldn't want to get rid of the filibuster. But I think that look at the Mamdani press conference. I don't think people in the House watching that saw that coming or were all that pleased about it. It just shows that this president will pivot on a dime. And if he wants to become more popular, the country wants more centrism, he may shift. Will the House Republicans go with him?
We welcome all of you worldwide across the Bloomberg, a set of headlines, some confusing, very much back and forth in different themes, the Russian headlines, the Ukraine headlines, U.S. headlines, even from London as well on the peace discussion in Ukraine. We have Wendy Schiller of Brown University with us. Wendy, I believe, Paul, help me here, we had sort of an understanding of a Pentagon military geopolitics advice mechanism in the first Trump administration. Do you have any understanding of the advising process in the Trump second administration? Or is this President Trump literally doing it maybe with Secretary Rubio and that's it?
Well, here's what's interesting. He seemed to be so in love with generals in the first term. Mark Milley, all the others. He really did. We had that sort of parade of military people in Washington, D.C. when he went on the streets of the Capitol. He seemed to really, really like them, admire them, love them, take their advice. And then they were saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And he decided, it must have for the last 4 years before he won re-election, that was it. He wasn't doing that again. He didn't trust them. He would not let Hegseth make the kind of changes to sideline these generals if he'd still had admiration for them. I think he's lost a lot of faith and confidence that they will go along with what he wants to do. So, yeah, I think he himself wants to call the shots even over the military. Right. And so I think that's been pretty obvious all along there. And it's interesting that Rubio went in sort of last minute, right? Rubio wasn't sort of the front of the line on these peace negotiations. And then all of a sudden things are going badly. Rubio gets on a plane. And then now we have an outcome I think the president wants. Interesting for Marco Rubio standing with the president, if you think about it. And I think it's clear Trump has told whomever is in the room or will be in the room, get it done. I want to pull out. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think that kind of pressure on Zelensky may lead to some sort of peace settlement.
We treasure your appearance, Wendy Schiller, on very short notice this morning. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Surveillance coming up after this.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
It's time to do the newspapers today. We're not going to talk Butterball or Wild Range Turkey here. $200 for a 10-pound turkey.
Really?
I don't think so.
Holy scamoles.
We're not going to do that. We're going to do the newspapers because we're serious. Lisa?
We will get there. I want to start with this one because affordable housing, right? A big point of major focus in New York City. So officials say they might have solutions. And what they're talking about is tiny living. Yes, more smaller apartments. Here we go. How small are we talking about? 100 square feet each. So think of it like a college dorm, more like. It has shared kitchen space, shared living space, shared bathrooms. It's not a new concept, but city officials say there should be more of them. So they want to build more of them. You have a councilman who represents part of Manhattan. He's expected to introduce that bill today. And basically it's going to make it easier to convert office buildings into
I saw a chart over the weekend of where do people want to move in America. Number 2 was Los Angeles. Okay. And number 1 was New York City.
Still.
There's just a ton.
Always.
Paul, you live this. There's a ton of people. We need more supply, not teens. How small?
Well, I think affordable housing in New York, has it ever been affordable?
No.
I mean, tough. They're saying this would be about $1,500 a month to be part of this in places like Bed-Stuy, Clinton Hill, where rent usually goes for about $3,000 a month.
Okay,
there.
All right, so that'd be a break.
So 100 square feet.
Yeah, it's like living in a college dorm. It is.
I guess for young people, they're
but
fine.
But if you're young, you're used to it.
Young people,
I guess.
You're fine.
It's an option to get your foot in the door, I guess, in the city.
Yeah, we had 3 people in a kind of a 1.5 bedroom back in the day when I moved in the city. We put 3 people in there.
You slept on 4 cases of beer.
It was fine. It worked all right.
Next.
Okay, let's go to the Butterball, okay? All right, so are you enjoying here the cooked bird? Are you going out to eat? I think, Paul, you said you were going out. Right?
Yep.
Are you getting a home cook? You're going out too? Oh my God.
Jerome Schneider at Kimco has Greenberg's, a smoked turkey from Texas.
Nice.
It's great.
Yep.
What do you
Well, see, you're on the right track because this is in the Journal. They're saying that all these restaurants, because people are going out, they're coming up with these like new age turkeys, okay? Like some of them have a jerk turkey, a Peking turkey, a tandoori turkey, turkey al pastor. You also have a French take on the turkey. We don't want to get into that one too much, but because they're saying turkeys are like they lack flavor. It's hard to do it. So their chefs are like deboning a turkey. They're stuffing it with pineapple. They're massaging it, hours before.
But all my work yesterday and my prep into the weekend was trumped by Lisa Mateo putting yogurt in mashed potatoes.
Oh, there's also a turkey with a yogurt marinade. Bingo.
Of course. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy with that.
It's delicious, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. God bless my aunt because I'm not cooking.
I'll clean. I'll sit in the kitchen for 2 hours afterwards and clean.
Yes.
As long as there's a glass of wine there, I'm good. I'll clean all day long.
I do. I'm always at the sink.
Next.
Okay. So as a local reporter over the years, I've covered Thanksgiving parade, right? I've covered the blowing up of the balloons. I've covered all that, the training at MetLife's, Citi Field, wherever they host it. But I never saw the takedown, how they get those balloons down. And the Wall Street Journal has this great look, fantastic pictures. Volunteers train at flight schools because they have to get these things down in like 15 minutes, because if they don't, you have a whole parade coming behind you and they're going to trance right over you. So they have to like yank these zippers, gusts of helium. They're told, don't breathe in, don't breathe in. And then
so they do it right at the parade route, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and it's
right.
like an assembly line. It's like this mass dash to get it. After Santa does his little wave, it's like this mad dash to get all these things.
They do have good pictures in the journal.
They do have good pictures, but they have to avoid the pile up because you don't want Snoopy piling on top of like Superman.
Yeah.
On top
I didn't even think of that.
What was the worst rain that you ever confronted?
At the parade?
Up to your knees,
No. I mean, it was an umbrella. It was fine. Yeah.
It was fine.
But it's the cold. It gets cold.
And you're out there for
hours.
Yeah.
Lisa Mateo, the newspapers, thank you so much.
This is the Bloomberg Surveillance Podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live each weekday, 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.